solemnly swear
I, John Fitzgerald Kennedy, do solemnly swear
that you will faithfully execute the office of President of the United States
that I will faithfully execute the office of President of the United States
and will, to the best of your ability,
and will, to the best of my ability,
preserve, protect, and defend the Constitution of the United States.
preserve, protect, and defend the Constitution of the United States.
So help you God.
So help me God.
On May 29, 1917, John Fitzgerald Kennedy was born in Brooklyn, Massachusetts to Joe and Rose Kennedy. He was the great-grandson of Irish immigrants and grandson of a prominent Boston political figure. He graduated cum laude in June 1940 from Harvard University with a Bachelor of Science degree. In July of that same year, Kennedy's college thesis, Appeasement in Munich, about Britain's failure to prepare itself against Nazi Germany, was published as a book titled Why England Slept. It sold over 8,000 copies in the United Kingdom alone. At age 24, he was sworn in as an ensign in the U.S. Navy. After 3 years of service, he was given command of the PT-109 as a lieutenant in 1943. While on active duty in Blackett Strait, North Solomon Islands in the Pacific, his ship was sunk on August 3rd by the Japanese. Kennedy performed heroically rescuing 3 of his crew members. On August 12, 1944, Kennedy's older brother, Joe Kennedy Jr., was killed after his Air Force plane exploded shortly after takeoff. When he was 29, he was elected as a U.S. Representative for the 11th Congressional District in Boston. He was re-elected in 1948 and 1950. Kennedy married Jacqueline Lee Bouvier in Newport, Rhode Island on September 12, 1953. Shortly after the wedding, Kennedy underwent several back operations. During the recovery of his second surgery, which was almost fatal, he wrote Profiles in Courage. This novel described the stories of 8 U.S. senators who risked their careers by standing up for their personal beliefs. This novel won the Pulitzer Prize. Jacqueline gave birth to Caroline Bouvier Kennedy on November 27, 1957, at Cornell Medical Center in New York. When Kennedy announced his candidacy for the President of the United States in January of 1960, it made him the youngest presidential candidate of his time.
I am today announcing my candidacy for the presidency of the United States. The presidency is the most powerful office in the free world. Through its leadership can come a more vital life for all of our people. In it are centered the hopes of the globe around us for freedom and a more secure life.
On Tuesday, November 8th, Kennedy defeated Nixon in one of the closest presidential elections of the 21st century. He won only by a margin of 0.2% in the national vote. 16 days after his father was elected president, John Fitzgerald Kennedy Jr. was born at Georgetown University Hospital. At age 43, Kennedy took the oath of office on January 20, 1961. In this inaugural address, he stated 2 lines that went down as one of the most famous quotes in presidential history.
And so, my fellow Americans, ask not what your country can do for you, ask what you can do for your country.
As one of his first presidential acts, Kennedy signed a bill creating the Peace Corps on March 1, 1961. The Bay of Pigs invasion of Cuba occurred in April of 1961, in which Kennedy supported the invasion to oust the country's communist leader, Fidel Castro. The invasion failed, and Kennedy was heavily criticized. President Kennedy met with Nikita Khrushchev in Vienna to discuss international issues from June 3rd to June 4th in 1961. The focus of this meeting was disarmament, Germany, Laos, and nuclear testing. In one of his most well-known speeches in September of 1962, Kennedy spoke at Rice University, pledging that the United States would put a man on the moon. 7 years later, in 1969, Neil Armstrong walked on the moon, confirming Kennedy's promise to the nation.
We choose to go to the moon. We choose to go to the moon. We choose to go to the moon in this decade and do the other things, not because they are easy, but because they are hard. because that challenge is one that we're willing to accept, one we are unwilling to postpone, and one we intend to win.
U.S. intelligence discovered that the Russians were building missile sites in Cuba, this beginning the Cuban Missile Crisis in October of 1962. During the Civil Rights Movement in 1963, Kennedy sent the Alabama National Guard to the University of Alabama to escort 2 African-American students. While visiting Germany from June 23rd through 26th, Kennedy spoke to an enormous crowd in the Rudolph Wilde Platz. In his speech, Kennedy used the construction of the Berlin Wall to give examples of failed communism. After visiting Germany, Kennedy made his way to Ireland, where he delivered another speech, this time to the Irish Parliament in Dublin. Kennedy pushed for the adoption of a limited or partial nuclear test ban treaty, which prohibited atomic testing on the ground, in the atmosphere, or underwater, but did not prohibit testing underground. He signed this treaty into law in October 1963. On Friday, November 22, 1963, John Fitzgerald Kennedy was shot at 12:30 p.m. while riding in an open-top limousine in a motorcade through downtown Dallas. He was shot once in the upper back and was killed with a final shot to the head.
This is Walter Cronkite in our newsroom. There has been an attempt, as perhaps you know now, on the life of President Kennedy. He was wounded in an automobile driving from Dallas Airport into downtown Dallas, along with Governor Connolly of Texas. They've been taken to Parkland Hospital there, where their condition is as yet unknown. We have not been told their condition. At Dallas, in the downtown hotel room, a group had been gathered to hear President Kennedy when he was waiting regarding the probable assassin. The sheriff's officers have taken a young man into custody at the scene, a man 25 years old. We just have a report from our correspondent, Dan Rather, in Dallas, that he has confirmed that President Kennedy is dead. There is still no official confirmation of this, however. It's a report from our correspondent, Dan Rather, in Dallas, Texas.
80 minutes after Kennedy's assassination, Lee Harvey Oswald was arrested on charges of murder of a local police officer and was subsequently charged with the assassination of Kennedy. 2 days later, Oswald was shot by Jack Ruby. This murder began the greatest conspiracy in the history of the United States. The president's body was returned to the White House at 4:30 a.m. on Saturday, November 23rd. At 10:30 a.m., a private mass was said in the East Room for the family. On November 25, 1963, John F. Kennedy's body was buried temporarily in Arlington National Cemetery. Representatives from over 90 countries attended the funeral. On March 14, 1967, his body was moved to a permanent burial plot and memorial. 2 hours and 8 minutes after Kennedy was assassinated, Lyndon B. Johnson was sworn in as the President of the United States aboard Air Force One.
From Dallas, Texas, the flash, apparently official, President Kennedy died at 1 p.m. Central Standard Time, 2 o'clock Eastern Standard Time, some 38 minutes ago. Vice President Lyndon Johnson has left the hospital in Dallas, but we do not know to where he has proceeded. Presumably, he will be taking the oath of office shortly and become the 36th President of the United States.